I was like, God, this cannot be what life is about. Constantly failing, constantly trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
From burned out news reporter to building Nashville's first major Airbnb empire, Dani Dubetz rebuilt her life by choosing freedom over fear.
You're so happy with your life and where you are now. And, it wasn't always that way. So, Dani, just give us a little background of how you got where you're at right now.
Even if I make it to the tippy top of my career, I'm still working Thanksgiving Day. Wait a minute. Survival is not the game. It should not be the game. Life should be the game. I totally surrendered at that point and was like, I don't know who I am, what my gifts are, what I'm good at. Just open doors for me, and if the door is open, I will walk through it. If I can do it for you, I can do it for other people.
Yes, you found it. Tell us how you found it.
That confirmation that what I know can help others create their own beautiful life for themselves until that moment, which I was like, it was the best.
Hello and welcome to Radical TV. I'm Shawna Smith. Joining me here today is Dani Dubetz. Hello, Dani. How are you?
Hi, Shawna. I'm great. How are you?
Fabulous. Dani is an Airbnb real estate investor, author, wife, mama, and founder of the music City Loft, a Nashville-based vacation rental brand built from a single stuck property, a whole lot of grit, and the kind of surrender that upgrades everything.
That's
that
right. Sounds
pretty.
Yeah, that's it.
You got it. We're good. And I loved hearing your story. We've been talking a little bit off air of just, you're so happy with your life and where you are now. And, it wasn't always that way. So, Dani, just give us a little background of how you got where you're at right now.
Oh, well, I started like most people do. You have a dream, you go to college, maybe you get in your career and you're just like trudging away and you're like, wait a second. Like, where is the light at the end of the tunnel? Where is my ability to save enough money to truly advance my life? Or what happens if I make it to the very tippy top of my career and then like I'm not happy? And I had that moment. I was working as a television news reporter, chasing my dream, relatively good at it. Like I loved my job for what I thought it was going to be, right? And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was Thanksgiving Day, and I was making $42,000 a year, working Thanksgiving Day, one of what we would have called one of the grunts in the newsroom. And then the senior anchor walks in, and I did the math, and he made like 7 times more than me, 7 or 8 times more than me. He was working Thanksgiving Day, and I turn on the TV and I look at Matt Lauer, and he's making 20 million, and he was working Thanksgiving Day. And I was like, wait a minute. Even if I make it to the tippy top of my career, I'm still working Thanksgiving Day. And in some respects, like I'm a slave to some machine, to the paycheck, to like the glory. I don't know, whatever. I mean, whatever the significance. I mean, there are so many things that our careers like kind of draw us into, and so many needs that our careers meet. But at what point is a paycheck not enough to take time away from my family? And there were some other like hypocrisies that I was like aware of on the ground floor that made it impossible for me to wake up every single day knowing I was going to be telling a sad story, knowing I was going to be telling a subjectively biased story, and still go to sleep at night feeling good about myself. I was like, I got to get out. And so what I did was I radically disrupted my life, and I declined a promotion at my newsroom and told them I was actually going to leave and pursue music in Nashville. And it was totally a pipe dream to get me out of the situation. And I knew that I just was so lost and so looking for who I am and what I'm supposed to be when I grow up that I was just willing to go for it. And so I did, and then moved to Nashville, was a beverage cart girl at a golf club, was a waitress, was a volleyball coach, making basically no money. And then fortunately, my mother had a lot of experience in buying homes in foreclosure and then fixing them up and flipping them. And so I followed that path for a little bit until I realized that was also a kind of prison.
Jobs that are prisons are not fun.
Yeah, it's just, there's so much, it's just awareness of, the way that the system works. Like, and I understand a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, flipping homes would be my dream. I've always wanted to do that. The reality of it is you buy a house, you fix it up, you go in debt, max out your credit cards and pray for it to sell. It sells usually, hopefully in like the nick of time, right? There were many times I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm down to my last $500 on my credit card, and then you sell it. You get out of debt, you pay off your credit cards, and then you go find another one. So it was that moment of stress and anxiety between the sales that I was like, this doesn't feel like life either. And that was the lesson that really just resonated in my bones, where I was like, what am I really looking for? I'm really looking for freedom. And at the time I was like, the freedom to work whatever career I want, and truly like the freedom to find the career that really lights me up, really inspires me, and regardless of what it pays, I'm like all in, and this is amazing, and it doesn't even matter. Well, you can only make those kinds of decisions when you have financial income supporting life, right? Like helping you pay your rent and helping you put food on the table and car insurance and all those expenses. So I was searching desperately for freedom and tried all kinds of, I tried the multi-level marketing thing. I was looking for all the ways that I can create income to support life so that I could be who I was supposed to be, or live the life that I believe that God has given us to live, which is a life of freedom. But somehow we've gotten sucked into this machine where there's so many bills we have to pay and so many taxes. And that's a whole level of topics that I go over on my podcast, just because I'm constantly like processing and looking for the hack out of, perspective and everything like that. But anyways, I mean, that was the aha moment for me when I realized I was really after freedom. And that's like the next step of my story of how like God answered that prayer.
Yes, you found it. Tell us how you found it and what happened.
So, because I was doing the foreclosure business, a downtown loft came to the market, and their opening bid on it was like $300,000, which was way too much. But I kept an eye on it, and a couple of months later, a real estate agent contacted me, and they had listed that same property on MLS for $135,000. And I called my mom. I was like, Mom, this is it. I'm going to make like 90 grand. This is going to be great, blah, blah, blah. It's like fitting in this certain profile that I was looking for. But mostly I'm 20 something years old. I'm like 27 at the time. And I'm like, sweet, I'm going to live on an air mattress. I'm going to party in downtown Nashville. And then this property is going to sell and I'm going to have a whole ton of money in the bank. This is going to be great. And that's not what happened at all. It sat on the market, and it sat and sat and sat. And then the wave of failure like came crashing in on me again. And I'd gotten fired from another job that was like that I didn't even want to do in the first place, as I'm like trying to find what I'm good at. I tried all kinds of things. And I was laying I finally had the moment. Okay. Picture this. You're at this moment of desperation. You get a $2 bottle of wine for dinner, and you just lay down on the floor and stare up at the ceiling and start crying. That's what happened. And I was like, God, this cannot be what life is about. Constantly failing, constantly trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And then you go through this season of survival where you're like, screw it. I'm just going to numb out. I'm going to figure out how to not feel, how to not be sad about my day job and just like get it done. And that's not the life that we were meant to live either. You know, survival is not the game. It should not be the game. Life should be the game. And they are two very different things. So, I totally surrendered at that point and was like, I don't know who I am, what my gifts are, what I'm good at. For the next year, just open doors for me. And if the door is open, I will walk through it. And the very next idea that came on was to put my property on VRBO. And my mom helped me furnish it with like $5,000 of stuff from TJ Maxx Home Goods, which I'm still totally a fan of.
Wow.
And the first, and I moved back home to live with my mom and do a reset because I was, you know, losing it. And the first reservation that came in was for $1,500 for CMA Fest. And I looked at my mom and I was like, wow, like this is only a 5-night reservation. If this property was on the market, like as a long-term rental, that's how much it would get for an entire month. And we were like, that's interesting. You know, we didn't really like pick up the scent right away. We were a little slow, but we were like, but eventually like time went on and I was realizing, I know this is shocking, but I got another job and I got fired from another job all while my vacation rental is operating. And my mom was like, look, you have a ton of free time now. You need to come to this investment seminar with me. I was like, yeah, I have a ton of free time again. and I'm running the numbers and I'm like, people are it's an IRA investment seminar. So people are talking about everything from hot dog stands to single family homes. And people are like, oh my gosh, I cash flowed $20. Oh my gosh, I cash flowed $200. And I was like, and I started like adding up what my property had made in the last couple of months and like elbowed her and was like, Mom, it made like $3,500 last month. And she's like, what? Like she almost just stopped everything and pulled me out. And yeah, and then we hopped around to different like real estate guru guys and gals. And we're like, what do you think about this? And they're like, no, that's crazy. That'll never work. We're like, okay, well, it seems pretty good. I mean, it's like 3 or 4 times normal monthly rent. So I'm like kind of confused. And then we found somebody who was an outside of the box thinker by nature. And then for the next 2 years, I got totally obsessed with buying more units and like the right things happened at the right time because I was walking into every open door and just like kept following the trail. And it was roughly a year and a half later, I'd found a business partner. I'd negotiated some creative financing with the banks and the sellers. And roughly a year and a half later, I closed on, well, okay, let me backtrack that. A year and a half after I figured out what I was doing, okay, because the vacation rental first started in 2010, and I didn't figure it out until like 2012. So a year and a half after I figured it out, I closed on 11 units in that same building, and Music City Loft was born. It was the largest multi-unit specific Airbnb VRBO short-term rental purchase that Nashville had ever done, that any banker had ever cleared. And I was the first to do it in Nashville, to my knowledge. And yeah, that was the beginning.
Wow, this is so phenomenal. And now what I love is that you are teaching other people how to do this and you have a method. So tell me about that.
Yes, totally. Well, first I have to confess that there's a reason why I didn't teach it sooner. And it wasn't because of the market. It wasn't because of anything else other than the whole reason that I created this for myself is because I wanted freedom. Right. But my reason for wanting freedom is because I wanted to truly fall in love I wanted to find and fall in love with the perfect life partner. I didn't want that decision to be clouded by any kind of like financial decisions, right? And I and I also really wanted to have a family and homeschool my kids. And my reason for wanting to homeschool is because I grew up in the public school system and don't consider myself like super smart. Like I have no geographical awareness whatsoever. Like I was a pass the test taker. And my stepbrothers, I had 3 stepbrothers who are like, can remember everything. And I'm like, whoa, there's something about like the way learning is introduced, at least for me, through the public school system that did not like resonate. You know, it didn't sink in. It wasn't anything to grab onto. So with that vision in mind, my purpose for creating Music City Loft was so that I would have the freedom to work from anywhere I wanted to, financial self-sufficiency, and also a legacy asset to one day pass on to my children. But first I had to find the guy and first I had to start the family. And until I had that version of success, I didn't feel comfortable sharing it with anybody because inside I wasn't doing what I was doing from a place of joy. There was still half of my person. Like if your career takes up a big part of your personality, which it does, you know, because it's where we spend a lot of hours of our life, the other most important side is like finding love in a family. And until I had that peace, there was still like a longing and a suffering and a painful place about everything that I'd created because it was during COVID when I met my husband. And right before I met him, I had another conversation with God, exactly like lying on the floor, drinking wine for dinner. I was like, Lord, I have no reason to build this for myself. And if you don't give me a person and a legacy worth fighting for to keep it, there's no reason for me to keep fighting. Like, you know, COVID was threatening to take away tons of businesses. And I was down to my last $1,500 in my checking account, making sure that my employees stayed paid. And I just had that moment. I was like, I'm not going to keep fighting to hold on if I don't have something worth fighting for. And so that's why. Another Thanksgiving aha moment, a couple of, you know, my husband and I met during COVID, quickly got engaged, quickly got married, quickly had babies. Like we did everything on the fast track. And it was another Thanksgiving miracle, I would call it, of just like that clarity that came in was my husband is from a huge family. He's like one of 6. And so we have like when his and our family get together, there's like 30 people there and it's all brothers, sisters, spouses, and their children. And they all have, you know, minimum 2 children, you know, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is what they all have. So there's a lot of people plus the girlfriends. Right. So anyways, we're having this family gathering on Thanksgiving. And I looked around and I saw my husband playing with my son and I was holding my baby daughter in our arms. And I looked at my cute, perfect dog who was there. And I was looking at all the smiling faces of all these new sisters that I have in my life and my family now and all of their, you know, their spouses. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I made it. Like that was the dream that I was doing everything for. And I literally, like, life was moving so fast. It wasn't until that Thanksgiving day when it hit me, you know, that the buildings and the income and the assets, like that's great. But if real freedom and your real dream isn't on the other side of it, it would have been for nothing. And to get to a place where I really felt like I had it all, then it's like, okay, I have proven that this works, right? Because just solving the finance problem doesn't solve problems. Like I think that I heard a billionaire entrepreneuress say the other day, She said, money doesn't buy you happiness, but it buys you freedom. And freedom can lead to happiness, depending if you use it correctly, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was when I felt like I made it, and why I feel like now I'm like pumped up and excited and thrilled and passionate and like just like supercharged to share this with others.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you did it this way because, really the true test, I think, in a lot of the world is getting married and having children and still being happy. So kudos to you. But yeah, tell me about your method.
I call it the freedom framework. And we just run down the line. First is find your vision. That's super important to know how and why you want what you want. Second is reshape your mindset, because a lot of us have limiting beliefs. I remember I hung on to this Oprah quote that said, "You can have it all, just not all at once." And that is a quote that really messed me up, because when my career would be thriving, my love life would be struggling. When my love life would be thriving, my career would struggle. And I was like, whoa, 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 we've got to rewrite this whole thing. So a lot of reshape your mindset is around um, getting yourself to believe that you can have it all at once. And I think that that's so important, because belief is like the first step, right? And so there are processes that we go through to help us get there. Then evaluate opportunities. This gets right into the Airbnb space of like how to find the markets that are going to meet the needs of what it is that you're looking for. Because the truth is, some people's dream might be to buy a property that they own 2 doors down from their mother, so that even though she wants independent living, they can be close by for long visits. I've had some, like my grandmother, I used to visit my grandmother, and she'd be like, how long are you staying? Like, she couldn't wait to get her independence back. But if I could have just stayed 2 doors down, I could have checked on grandma as much as I wanted without really overwhelming her with my presence. It's that kind of idea that the reason that we're doing what we're doing is going to be different for everybody. So let's remove the sense of competition, and let's insert instead that sensation that all boats rise. We all get to thrive together. Everybody's ideal and everybody's dream is different, but the core belief and the core knowledge that Airbnb, the core belief and the core idea is that Airbnb, in my view, is one of the fastest vehicles to get you to that dream. Another one is expand your resources. So this is where we start talking about creative financing and how to structure deals, and understanding like it's you can find incredible deals out there regardless of what's happening in the economy if you have the tools of creative financing. And that's one of my favorite pieces to teach, because it teaches you how to look at the puzzle from different angles, and it's really fun. We also have design systems. So once you have your Airbnb in place, is how to optimize it so you're not chained to your computer solving all of these problems. One of the things that we do in our business is we use a 24-hour call center, and we've spent so much energy giving them like the most involved template so they can answer whoever has a problem in the middle of the night. And what's so wonderful is our guests love staying with us, because they're like, if I have a problem, I get to talk to a human being. I don't have to send an email. I don't have to talk to a chat bot. Like, I'm talking to a person who's solving my problem, and that it like gives us such a sense of security and relief. We just got that review a couple weeks ago, and I loved it. Also, O is for optimize your life. So just figuring out how and why you want to do this Airbnb thing, and how to structure it in a way to make sure that your reasons for getting in and your why is still being met. Because oftentimes we need to dive back in and recalibrate. Things can very easily go off the rails, and you go, whoa, 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 this is actually making me less free, not more free. How do we fine tune the details? And then multiply your money, because I mean, gosh, just to put it in perspective, multiply your money is really powerful, because I bought 11 units with creative financing. I purchased 4 more units that I only needed $3,500 of my own cash to close. And I purchased a $2 million building with $20,000 of my own cash. So this is the power of understanding creative financing and multiplying your money, is knowing how and when to use your own money and how and when to use like equity in other properties, cross collateralization, all that stuff.
Hmm.
And I mean, of course, and other things like, you know, how to optimize your rental income, and making sure that you're getting 5-star reviews. That also applies to multiplying your money, because if you have a great property and you get dinged a couple of times with a couple of negative reviews, that's going to affect your bottom line for sure.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is the biggest lie that your target audience has been told that you believe is completely false?
Well, that you can't have it all at once. That's a big one. And also that you need money to start, because you don't. Um, in fact, like because I did everything backwards, right? I didn't do one of the most successful strategies until like step 2 or 3 in my career. But when I talk about buying 4 additional units with $3,500 of my own cash, the way, like 4 units, the value was $750,000. I found a private money lender who would lend 100% of what it cost to purchase the properties. And all I had to pay for was the furniture, which I had a business partner to help me do. So then a year-ish goes by and we refinance out of that private money lender. And that's what I mean. I brought $3,500 of my own cash to the closing. It cost me nothing, almost nothing, to buy $750,000 worth of real estate. It just cost me some furniture expense. You don't need a ton of money to start an Airbnb. My first loft, I started with $5,000 just to furnish it and then see what happens. That could have been applied to any of the other lofts that I did. Of course, some of them were larger and required more money, but there's always a path in. You just have to be creative, you have to be determined, and you have to know that you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Who do you want to work with specifically?
Who do I want to work with specifically? That's such a good question, because I think that there's 3 types of women right now. I think that there's the single female who is focused on her career and, wants to make a name for herself because she's looking for that security, but also looking for purpose. I also think that there's a stay-at-home mom who's looking for passive income for her family or a legacy to give to her children that doesn't necessarily take time away from her most important job, which is being a mother. And then I also think that there is a woman who's been extremely successful, is probably, has some cash in the bank and wondering, what the heck do I do with this in a way that I can feel good about, in a way that helps me express my love for interior design, in a way that helps me feel like I have a tangible asset and don't have to hold my breath if, the stock market crashes or whatever. So there's 3 different types of women that I really think that I would love to work with and inspire to go to the next level, like whatever their next level is. And I think mostly that type of client is, she's heart open and she is really craving a better life, a better version of freedom for herself, and determined to find a way. And I believe I have a way.
And what makes your approach different from anything else out there, Dani?
I don't know. I don't look at a lot of other people and bother with what they're doing. I mean, I do a little bit, but not enough to say that, like, I think that my story is so unique in that I'm me, and that's what I've done and that's how I've done it. The Airbnb business is not a one size fits all for every single buddy, but I definitely am looking to create a culture of women and a community that we we create our little soul tribe in this like Airbnb empire thing that we want to do. And that's the way that I look at it. I try not to look at competition unless it's absolutely necessary, because I have that philosophy. All boats rise. There's enough space for everyone, and I stick to that.
What's the biggest mistake people make when they try to implement this themselves or try to do this themselves?
Not getting out of the gate faster. You spend too much time in your fear and not enough time taking action. You spend too much time saying all the reasons why not, instead of all the reasons how can I? Because if you ask the right questions, the answers will show up.
Is there anything that breaks your heart about this industry?
Yeah, there is something that breaks my heart about this industry. I think that the national landscape right now, and it's been like this for a long time. I think we're just now more educated about it. Like, we hear these stories about the elites and how they have like an unspendable amount of wealth. And every time I've experienced death in my life, there's very little on the table to go around to the heirs. And I'm like, what is that? How is that the way that it is for us, but not for them? And that's what breaks my heart. And why, when I think it's like the World Economic Forum or something says, you will own nothing and be happy, I'm going, no way. Absolutely not. In fact, I think now is the time that people need to be aggressive about owning property, because as long as we own something, they can't take it away from us, knock on wood, right? Without war or whatever. But we need to own more to prove our sovereignty, to prove that we're not under control, to prove that we don't have like some social credit score and we say, something out of the corner of our mouth that we're not even, and then someone's like, huh, you said what? And then now we can't go to the bank. Like, what is that? So those like big, nasty issues are what I like to do in my free time and talk about on my podcast and things like that, full life freedom, because I really am looking for a way, and it breaks my heart that some people already believe that it's not possible, and I refuse to accept that.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this pertains to you or not, but can you share a specific client story that exemplifies the transformation that you'll be taking them through?
One of my most successful clients wasn't a technical client of mine. He was a friend of mine. And he and I studied under the same type of real estate guru people. And he took me out to lunch one day and was asking me about Airbnb. And I gave him the whole roadmap. And he went on to purchase, I think, a minimum of 5 very successful Airbnb properties in Nashville. And we just met actually a couple, like literally like 2 weeks ago when I was in Nashville. We went out to dinner at Sinatra's and he was telling me the story and I just started tearing up and I was like, Brian, I had no idea. And he was like, yes, girl. He goes, you made me $1 million. And I was like, what? So that was my success story. I was like, holy cow, if I can do it for you, I can do it for other people. And like some of this stuff had already been in motion, but I hadn't yet gotten that confirmation that what I know can help others create their own beautiful life for themselves until that moment, which I was like, it was the best.
Oh, wow. So Dani, how can people learn more and find more about you if they want to connect with you?
Oh, thanks for asking. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Usually you can just find me by searching Dani Dubetz, like whatever the little slash is. And also I have a podcast. If it's not out yet, it should be out by the time that this airs, called Full Life Freedom. Yeah, I think that's a really good start. Of course, I'm in a couple of radical books and I have my tiny book coming out, which is tentatively named Broke to Booked, from Broke to Booked. And yeah, just like we're out there. You can find us, Dani Dubetz, DaniDubetz.
Perfect. Dani, thank you for joining us here on Radical TV today.
Thank you.